Hi, my name's Dallas, and my mustache and I are going to be your teachers for today. So, I am here in the Lego room because I'm going to use Legos to do our lesson. Our lesson today is about death and why death is not the end for Christians. So, before we get to our lesson, let's sing some songs. You guys want to do some songs? One song? Two songs? All right, maybe one or two. We'll see. Should we sing the Joy song?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's give it a try. Joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 joy. J is for Jesus, O is for others, Y, I is for you, you, joy, joy, joy. Should we do it again? Okay, here we go. Joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 joy. J is for Jesus, O is for others, Y, I is for you, you, joy, joy. Okay, one more time. Here we go. Joy, 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 oh the joy, 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 oh the joy, joy, oh the joy, 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 joy. J is for Jesus, O is for others, Y, I is for you, joy, joy. Okay, the jumps one more time. Joy, joy, joy. Hey, that was good. Good job, guys. Now, as you may have noticed, today is Easter Sunday, the day that we celebrate Jesus' resurrection from the dead. Have any of you heard about what happened on the first Easter?
Hi, Dad.
Oh, hi, Elijah. What's up?
Did you know that Easter wasn't the only time that someone was raised from the dead?
Yes, I did know that.
I think we should tell everyone about those times, too.
About those times, too? Well, it's not really in the lesson plan.
But we could put in the lesson plan.
I guess we could put it in the lesson. Okay. Well, how many times in the Bible was somebody healed from the dead?
10 times.
10 times? I didn't think there were that many.
Well, there are.
Okay, well, I guess we better get started if we're going to go through all 10. This is going to be a lot. All right, number 1 from 1 Kings chapter 17. Elijah came upon a widow who was gathering wood. He called to her, "Please bring me a drink of water." And as she was going to get it, he called to her again, "Please bring me a piece of bread too." She said, "I have only one handful of flour in a jar, and a little oil in a jug. I'm going to prepare something for myself and my son, so that we can eat it, and then we will be out of food." Then Elijah told her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you've said, but first make a small loaf and bring it to me. Then prepare something for yourself and your son. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Until the Lord sends rain on the land, your jar of flour will never be empty, and your jug will always contain oil." She did this, and the jar of flour never became empty, and the jug always contained olive oil, and Elijah stayed and lived with them. After some time, the woman's son got so sick that he died. Elijah took the boy and called to the Lord 3 times, "Please, make this child's life return to him." The Lord heard Elijah's request, and the child's life returned to him. He was alive again. Number 2, from 2 Kings chapter 4. A woman from Shunem had told Elisha that when he was in the area, he should come eat with them. So whenever he was near, he stopped in to eat. She told her husband, "I know he is a holy man of God, and he regularly travels past our house. Let's make a small room for him, and he can stay there whenever he comes to visit us." So that's what they did, and Elisha stayed with them sometimes. One day, Elisha told the woman, "At this time next spring, you will hold a baby boy in your arms." And after a few months, the woman became pregnant and had a son. Several years later, the boy suddenly got sick, and he died. And his mother rushed to get Elisha, for he was out of town. When she reached him, he told his servant to take his staff to the dead boy and lay it on his face. The servant went ahead of him and put the staff on the boy's face, but there was no sound or sign of life. So the servant came back to meet them and said that the boy was dead. When Elisha came to the house, he went into the room, closed the door, and prayed to the Lord. He crouched over the boy's body, and it became warm. The boy sneezed 7 times, and he opened his eyes. Number 3, from 2 Kings chapter 13. Now Elisha died, and he was buried in a tomb. Many months later, people who were burying another man saw an enemy raiding party, so they quickly put the man into Elisha's tomb. But they accidentally put the body down, touching Elisha's bones. The dead man came back to life, and he stood up. Resurrection number 4, from Luke chapter 7. One day, Jesus met a funeral procession. The dead man was a widow's only son. Jesus went up to the coffin, took hold of it, and said, "Young man, I'm telling you to come back to life." The dead man sat up and began to talk. Resurrection number 5, from Luke chapter 8. A synagogue leader arrived and quickly bowed down in front of Jesus. He begged Jesus to come to his home, for his 12-year-old daughter was dying. While they were walking, someone came to the synagogue leader's home and said, "Your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore." When Jesus heard this, he told the synagogue leader, "Don't be afraid, just believe, and she will get well." When Jesus got to the house where the girl was, everyone was crying and knew she was dead. But Jesus took her hand and called out, "Child, get up." And she came back to life and got up at once. They were amazed, but Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. Number 6, from John chapter 11. Jesus' friend Lazarus from Bethany died. Jesus was in a different city and told his disciples, "Lazarus has died, but I'm glad that I wasn't there, so that you can grow in faith. Let's go to Lazarus." When Lazarus' sister Martha heard that he was coming, she went to meet him. When he arrived, Jesus found that Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. Martha told Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "I am the one who brings people back to life, and I am life itself. Those who believe in me will live, even if they die. Anyone who lives and believes in me will never die." When Mary arrived where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her crying, he also started crying. He went to the tomb, and it was a cave with a stone covering the entrance. Jesus said, "Take the stone away." And the stone was moved away from the entrance of the tomb. Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I've known that you always hear me. However, I've said this so that the crowd standing around me will believe that you sent me." After Jesus had said this, he shouted as loudly as he could, "Lazarus, come out!" And Lazarus came out. Number 7, from Acts chapter 9. A disciple named Tabitha always helped people and gave things to the poor. But she became sick and died, and her body was prepared for burial. When the disciples heard that Peter was nearby, they sent 2 men to him. They begged Peter, "Hurry, we need your help." So Peter went with them. When he arrived, he was taken upstairs. All the widows stood around him. They were crying and showing Peter the articles of cloth she had made while she was still with them. Peter knelt and prayed. Then he turned toward the body and said, "Tabitha, get up." Tabitha opened her eyes, saw Peter, and sat up. Peter took her hand and helped her stand. The news about this spread throughout the city, and as a result, many people believed in the Lord. Number 8, from Acts chapter 20. On Sunday, when the Christians met to break bread, Paul was discussing scripture with the people. Since he intended to leave the next day, he kept talking until midnight. As Paul was talking on and on, a young man sitting in a window was gradually falling asleep. Finally, overcome by sleep, he fell from the 3rd story, and he was dead when they picked him up. Paul went down to him, took him into his arms, and said, "Don't worry, he is alive." Then they went upstairs again, broke the bread, and ate. Paul talked with the people for a long time, until sunrise, and then he left. Number 9, from Matthew chapter 28. Jesus had died on Friday, and after the day of worship, as the sun rose Sunday morning, Mary and Mary went to look at the tomb. Suddenly there was a powerful earthquake. An angel of the Lord had come down from heaven, rolled the stone away, and was sitting on it. He was as bright as lightning, and his clothes were as white as snow. The guards were so deathly afraid of him that they shook. The angel said to the women, "Don't be afraid. I know you're looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He's not here. He has been brought back to life, as he said. Come see the place where he was lying, and then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has been brought back to life." They ran to tell his disciples, and suddenly Jesus met them and greeted them. They went up to him, bowed down to worship him, and took hold of his feet. Then Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid. Go tell my followers to go to Galilee, where they will see me." Number 10, from Matthew chapter 27. When Jesus died, the curtain in the temple was split in 2 from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs were opened, and the bodies of many holy people who had died came back to life. They came out of the tombs after he had come back to life, and they went into the holy city, where they appeared to many people. Well, those were 10 times that the Bible records people being raised from the dead. But there may have been many more throughout history that aren't recorded in the Bible. Now, the resurrection that I am excited about hasn't even happened yet. Jesus tells us that when we trust in his teachings, at the end of time, our bodies will be restored, and we will live with him in a place without death, tears, or sadness. Well, it is time for me to go. Have a great Easter, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!